On the morning of July 9, 1918, Nashville awoke to a humid Tennessee summer day, the kind where the air itself seemed to carry the heavy scent of iron and wood smoke that clung to the bustling rail yards. The Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railway, known locally as the NC&StL, was alive with activity. Steam whistles echoed across the city as locomotives shunted cars and prepared for journeys across the state. What began as an ordinary Tuesday would soon descend into catastrophe. That morning, at a place locals knew as Dutchman's Curve just west of downtown Nashville, two heavily laden passenger trains, each powered by coal-fired steam locomotives, would meet in a collision so violent that it would claim over 100 lives and injure dozens more. The Nashville wreck would not only scar the land and the community, but also go down as the deadliest train wreck in American history. World War I raged overseas, and Nashville, like much of the nation, was caught in the machinery of wartime production. Factories ran at capacity, and railroads were the arteries of America, carrying soldiers, war supplies, and ordinary civilians. The NC&StL ran a busy passenger service. Trains were crowded, often packed beyond capacity with people traveling for work, visiting family, or reporting for military duty. Steel passenger cars had not yet become the norm. Many trains still used wooden coaches, which, while economical, splintered into deadly shrapnel during collisions. The line west of Nashville curved sharply through a wooded area known as Dutchman's Curve. It was a notorious bend. Trains had to round it slowly, and visibility was poor. Engineers relied on telegraph messages, station dispatchers, and strict timetables to ensure that no two trains occupied the same stretch of track. That morning, two passenger trains were scheduled to use the same track near Dutchman's Curve. In those days, railroads often ran both directions of traffic on the same single track, with sidings and depots providing passing opportunities. Dispatchers communicated by telegraph, issuing orders to engineers to wait or proceed. Miscommunication, or in this case, negligence, could be fatal. The seeds of disaster were sown at Union Station in Nashville, where operators mistakenly cleared both trains onto the same stretch of track. Train number 1, the Express, was supposed to wait and allow the inbound Memphis local to arrive first. Instead, confusion and error allowed both trains to barrel forward. At 6:25 a.m., train number 4 departed from Union Station, heading westward out of the city. Just minutes later, train number 1 left from the opposite direction. Both locomotives, belching black plumes of coal smoke, steamed toward Dutchman's Curve, unaware of the other's approach. At approximately 7:20 a.m., the two trains met at Dutchman's Curve. The curve's sharp bend and dense summer foliage meant neither engineer saw the other until it was far too late. Each train was still traveling at speed. Estimates ranged from 50 to 60 miles per hour. The scream of steel wheels and track, the sudden roar of whistles, and the grinding crash that followed reverberated like a cannon blast across the hills of West Nashville. The locomotive slammed head-on, rearing upward in a shower of sparks and steam. The impact was so violent that the front coaches, constructed of brittle wood, shattered instantly. Some cars splintered into fragments, no larger than kindling. Boilers burst, sending scalding steam through the wreckage. Survivors later described hearing cries that were quickly drowned by hissing steam and the groan of collapsing cars. The two great engines, locked together, drove upward in a twisted mass of iron before crashing back to earth. One engine toppled onto its side, half buried in the soil of the embankment. The wreckage was catastrophic. Passengers in the forward cars were crushed or killed outright. Wooden debris impaled many victims. Others were thrown violently against steel frames. Fires ignited, adding to the horror. Rescue efforts began almost immediately. Local residents, hearing the thunderous crash, rushed to the scene. They tore at the wreckage with their hands, pulling survivors free while others tried to extinguish flames with buckets of water. Physicians and nurses from Nashville hospitals soon arrived, but the scale of injury was overwhelming. The official death toll reached 101, though some estimates suggest more. More than 170 others were injured. Many of the victims were African-American laborers riding in the cheaper rear coaches, but casualties spanned across class and race. The wooden construction of the cars, combined with overcrowding, ensured a staggering loss of life. The wreck horrified the nation. Newspapers called it the Great Train Wreck at Nashville. The scene was described in gruesome detail. A splintered mass of humanity and timber, bodies strewn across the embankment. Families crowded morgues in the days following, desperate to identify loved ones. The investigation quickly pinned blame on human error. Dispatchers at Union Station had misread orders and failed to hold one of the trains. The practice of running wooden coaches at high speeds on single-track lines also drew criticism. Calls for safety reforms echoed across the country. The NC&StL eventually paid damages, but little could repair the trauma inflicted on Nashville. Entire families had been lost. Workers who had been traveling for their livelihoods were gone in an instant. The disaster remains the deadliest train wreck in U.S. history. It exposed the dangers of poor communication, outdated equipment, and over-reliance on fragile wooden passenger cars. In the years following, railroads began phasing in steel-bodied passenger cars, which offered greater protection in collisions. At Dutchman's curve, the tracks were repaired and trains ran again, but the land carried scars. Survivors spoke of haunting memories, the cries of children, the sound of timbers splintering, the eerie silence after the steam cleared. Today, a historical marker in Nashville's Richland Park commemorates the wreck. Few modern commuters who pass the site realize they are traveling over ground where, more than a century ago, tragedy struck with devastating force.